Hi, Deja. Thank you for coming in. We are so excited to have you here. Nicole and I talked about this, and I'm so proud that you were able to honor our invitation and came to a small studio today. And so we want to know more about what you do, what you're running for, and basically what is your idea behind all this, and what inspired you to run for what you're running for at the moment.
Sure, thanks for having me. My name is Deja Foxx, 25 years old, and I'm running for Arizona's 7th Congressional District in a special election July 15th. I was elected, I'd be the youngest woman, or rather I'd be the youngest member of Congress and the first woman of our generation.
Yeah, that's so cool. So what inspired you to run on this journey?
It, for me, is about the ways that politics is personal. I was raised here in Tucson by a single mom.
Yeah.
And I lived in Section 8 housing. I relied on SNAP benefits or food stamps to put dinner on the table and Medicaid to go to the doctors when I was sick. And I was a free lunch kid in our public schools my whole life. So I've known policy and politics from the ways it impacted my life. And now when there's so much on the line under this Trump administration, the same things my family relied on, I feel like we need a fighter.
That's true. And I would say it's so inspirational because you're just 25 years old and you're thinking about running for such a position. I know most of us in that age bracket will be like, why should I do something like that? Maybe I'm thinking 50 years from now or something like that. For sure, that's so inspirational. So I know you've talked a lot about bringing both real life experiences and policy knowledge to your work. How do you think that helps you lead differently, and how does it show up in your campaign every day?
Yeah, I grew up having to make hard decisions between bills and back to school clothes.
Yeah.
Hearing my mom have to decide, at the grocery checkout line, make some hard choices about what we're going to be able to afford, and that's the kind of experience that people in DC do not have.
That's true.
It's not the kind of thing you can learn in a classroom or from a memo written by your staff, but it's the things that they're debating and that they're voting on right now. And a budget bill passed through the House by just one vote, proposed by Donald Trump. Members of Congress voted to strip millions of people of their health care, to reduce funding for programs like SNAP, which literally takes food off of the tables of our most vulnerable families, all to give tax cuts to billionaires who don't need it. And I'm telling you that people like me who have lived the other side of those policies would make very different choices, and already are. And it's reflected in our campaign through the stories we tell.
That's true.
We have gained, in the last 30 days alone, over 30 million views on our campaign content on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram through good storytelling. And it's sharing personal stories that overlap with policy that people can see themselves in. And it brings new people into this process, young people, working class folks who've been left behind.
Yeah, so you talked about how you used to be a STEM. You used to have STEM growing up, right? Okay. So being in the minority and having to have help from the government is very hard. But what made you believe that you can make a change and you can step into this position in the future?
It was hard. Being poor is a political experience in this country. It's one of the richest countries in the world, and yet families don't have food, housing, or health care. And that's a moral decision. But when I was 15 years old, I started organizing. It all came about because my mom was struggling with addiction. And while she navigated rehabilitation, I was left on my own. I experienced something that 1 in 30 teens in the US go through called hidden homelessness. It means not having a home of your own, sometimes living with extended family or friends. For me, living with my boyfriend and his family. And it was in that experience that I was seated in a sex education class in Tucson Unified School District, where the sex ed hadn't been updated since the 80s. The curriculum didn't mention consent, it was medically inaccurate, and it was taught by the baseball coach. And it was young people like me who didn't have parents at home to fill in the gaps that were left at a disadvantage. So I started showing up to school board meetings and organizing, sharing my story, asking my friends if they'd come along and do the same. And even though my school board members were scared of the controversy that it might bring, young people like me and our allies demanded that they update this curriculum, and after 6 months, we won a unanimous victory to do so in Southern Arizona's largest school district. And it taught me the value of my story, that you don't need to have a fancy title or degree to have a voice in politics.
Yeah.
You are affected by politics every day, and that's enough to qualify you to go and speak at your school board meeting or run for a local office and to have a voice in politics.
Yeah, I think it's the right time that the young people should know and understand that, like what you've just said, you don't have to come from from a very wealthy family to run for politics. You don't have to come from such a fancy life to to speak up for whatever you think will help out other people. And this is really so inspirational, I can tell you. And I've watched most of your Instagram videos, also your public talk shows, and
Sure.
You've always been talking about reproductive rights most of the time. So, but what's another issue you care deeply about besides reproductive rights?
Yeah, reproductive rights, when it comes down to it, is an economic issue in some ways. There's no bigger financial decision you can make than if and when to start a family. And having access to quality sex education and no copay birth control at Planned Parenthood as a teenager were what made it possible for me to be the first in my family to go to college. And so when I talk about reproductive rights, birth control, sex education, and yes, abortion, I want people to know that it's about opportunity.
Yeah.
And so as I've entered this race, it's with a really clear vision that families like ours deserve to do more than just get by. They deserve a shot at getting ahead. And for me, that means protecting social services like the ones I grew up on, Section 8, SNAP, Medicaid. It means defending reproductive rights so you can decide if and when to start a family. It means building more affordable housing, right? Any young person knows that rent is too high and that home ownership feels far away. And it means investing in our public schools because that's where opportunity lives. And we know that potential is distributed equally. It's opportunity that's not.
Like Rebecca said, I love watching your reels on Instagram and also on TikTok. It makes it feel so relatable because you're part of our generation, which I love. So what advice do you have for future leaders or leaders right now that can better connect with today's digital world?
The digital world has real life implications. Some of the folks in our political establishment, in our party, look down on me for the ways that I use social media. They say that it's just a social media campaign, she's just an influencer. But the truth is that I'm a leader. And that behind every single one of those views is someone who has seen themselves in our story, in our run. Behind every like is someone who wants to show their support. Every share is someone who started a conversation with their friends or their family about this race. Every save is someone who wants to come back to this when maybe they themselves run for office. And so we see our content as a bit of a toolkit for other people who might want to run for office but don't know where to start. I know that was true for me. I launched this campaign on April 2nd, alone in my bedroom, from my laptop, no staff, just the belief that if I built something different, people would come. And they have. We've raised nearly $600,000. 99% of our donors are small dollar donors. And the average contribution is $27.73 as of today. It takes, something like 19,000 people pitching in to make that possible. And so we're using social media and good storytelling to reach people at scale and change who gets to have a voice in politics.
I know you've got some experience now with the social media era. So how do you think leaders at the moment can connect better in today's digital media, since you already have the experience? When
I went viral for the first time, I was 16 years old. It was under the first Trump administration, and Senator Jeff Flake, a Republican senator, had voted to defund Planned Parenthood centers, where I got care when I had no money, no insurance, and no parents. And I went to his town hall, and I asked why he, as a middle-aged white man, was making those decisions about me and my body, while he dodged constituents, avoided us at his office. And he told me that he supports policies that support the American dream. And I asked him, why would you deny me the American dream?
Yeah.
If birth control is helping me to be successful, reach for higher education. I woke up the next day and millions had seen that video.
Yeah.
My life went from private to public overnight. I was invited to speak live on CNN that day. I went to DC and lobbied on Capitol Hill, sat across from members of Congress and the Senate in their offices. And what I took away from it was that social media and good storytelling have removed the gatekeepers of who is respectable or credible enough to participate in our political system. It is allowing people who are the most affected to be at the front. And in the course of history, it's remarkable to see a 16-year-old girl working at a gas station, experiencing homelessness on even footing in the public discourse with the United States Senator. And it's a lesson that I took with me into this race, that I have a good story to tell, one that resonates with people, and the unique skills to connect with them and move them to action online. And it's making it possible for a young working class person like me to run for office and hopefully win.
Yeah, of course. So we're almost coming to the end of our discussion today.
Sure.
So if your campaign was more than just about running for office, if it were a movement, what would it be called and who will it be for?
This run is more than just a race. It is a movement, and it's a movement with, like I said, something like 19,000 people in our corner who pitch in what they can. I know their stories. They're people who cash in their change jar when they're barely making rent to contribute. They drive DoorDash after work. They're single moms. They send me DMs or letters in the mail with $15 and a note that says, this is an hour of my hard work and I want to be in your corner. And when I think about that and what it means for politics in general, it's proof that a different way of doing politics isn't just possible, it's necessary. And that we have one boss. 99% of our contributors are small dollar donors, no corporate PAC money. And the truth is that your representative, your member of Congress, works for you. And I think that's the movement, right? Is that?
And that's what makes it unique.
That's right. I think some people have forgotten the job title is representative.
That's true.
Yeah, I want to thank you again for taking the time to talk with us
Of course.
today. My last question is, what message would you like young people to know, especially during times right now?
Listen, things might get worse before they get any better. And I need you to be strong. I need you not to give up. And when I feel like things are hopeless and hard, which they have felt that way lately, I'm reminded who I do this work for. I do it for that version of my younger self, that 16-year-old girl that was working at the gas station who needed to have her potential protected today, not tomorrow. And so I'll leave you with a question, which is, who do you do this work for?
That's very important. So before we close our discussion for today, do you have anything else you want to share with the young people out there?
Just a reminder that we have the opportunity to make history in this election. It's coming up fast. July 15th is the last day to vote. You can vote early by mail or in person, or vote on election day, July 15th. But we don't get a do-over. And people are counting on young people to sit this out. It's a special election primary buried in the middle of summer on an off year. But every single one of you that shows up is proof that young people deserve better representation in Congress and all across this country.
Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
joining us today. This means so much to us and really appreciate your time.
Of course. Thank you for having me. Thank you for your hard work putting this together.
Yeah, thank you too.